Hello there, and welcome to Fall Asleep. Tonight, we are going somewhere most people will never see. Not a distant planet, not a mountain above the clouds, but somewhere closer than you might expect, and stranger than almost anywhere else on Earth. Tonight, we are going to the deep ocean floor, to a place where something extraordinary has happened. A whale has died. And in dying, it has given the deep ocean something it almost never receives. A gift, an enormous, slowly unfolding gift that will sustain life for decades to come. This is called a whale fall. When a whale dies in the open ocean and its body sinks to the seafloor, it does not simply disappear. It becomes something new. It becomes a habitat, an ecosystem. A community of hundreds of species, each arriving in sequence, each taking what it needs, each making way for the next wave. A single whale carcass on the seafloor can sustain life for 50 years or more. In a place where food is almost impossibly scarce, where light has never reached, where pressure could crush any unprotected human in seconds, one dead whale can become the center of the most productive and diverse community in the entire deep ocean. This is the story of that transformation, of stillness and abundance, of darkness and life, of an ending that becomes a beginning that lasts longer than most human lifespans. Before we sink together into the quiet dark, if you find these journeys restful, I invite you to like, subscribe, or leave a gentle thought below. It helps other tired minds find their way here, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there is nothing you need to do. Let your jaw unclench. Let your shoulders drop. Let your breathing slow into something easy, like the breathing of someone who has already let the day go. And as your mind begins to release the weight of today, join me as we descend, slowly, into the dark, into the still, into the extraordinary world of the whale fall. Let us begin. The deep ocean floor is the largest habitat on Earth. It covers more area than all the land surfaces combined, and for most of its expanse, it is among the most food-limited environments imaginable. Every calorie that sustains life there arrived from above, from the sunlit surface, thousands of meters up. The contrast with a whale fall site is almost impossible to overstate. A whale fall does not just add food to the deep sea floor. It transforms the local ecology entirely. It creates a local environment unlike anything in the surrounding hundreds of kilometers. Rich, active, diverse, sustained. And it does all of this quietly, in the dark. Over 50 years, the whale fall is one of the ocean's great hidden stories. A story most people have never heard. A story that happens in the deepest dark, without any audience, over timescales that outlast most human attention spans. The deep ocean is one of the hungriest places on Earth. It is vast. It occupies more than half the volume of the entire ocean. And it is dark, completely and permanently dark. Below about 200 meters, photosynthesis, the process that powers almost all life at the surface, cannot function in the dark. There is no sunlight to drive it, so the deep ocean cannot generate its own food from sunlight. It must wait for food to arrive from above. Most of what arrives is small, particles of organic matter drifting downward from the sunlit zone above. Dead algae, dead zooplankton, fecal pellets, the accumulated debris of the surface world, falling slowly through the water column like a quiet, continuous snow. Scientists call this marine snow, and while marine snow sustains life throughout the deep ocean, it is sparse, thinly distributed, nutritionally modest. The deep sea floor is not starving, exactly, but it is perpetually hungry. In this context, A whale carcass is something almost impossible to imagine in scale. A large blue whale weighs up to 150 tons. Even a medium-sized sperm whale weighs 40 or 50 tons. That is an extraordinary quantity of organic material arriving at the seafloor all at once. The equivalent of decades of marine snow concentrated into a single point, a sudden, massive, unexpected pulse of nutrition in a world that normally receives its food in the faintest possible trickle. It is the difference between a desert receiving its annual rainfall as a brief, intense storm versus a slow drizzle over a year. Same total amount, entirely different effect. The whale fall creates a local abundance so intense that it restructures the ecology of the surrounding seafloor for decades. Life responds accordingly, rapidly, enthusiastically, in waves. The productivity of the ocean surface is itself uneven. In cold, nutrient-rich upwelling zones, like those off the coasts of California, Peru, and Namibia, the surface is highly productive. Phytoplankton blooms are dense. The food chain is rich, and more material sinks. But in the vast oligotrophic gyres, the warm, clear, nutrient-poor stretches of open ocean that cover much of the tropical and subtropical ocean, productivity is low. Marine snow is sparse. The deep ocean below these gyres is among the most food-limited places on Earth. Yet whales travel through all of these zones. They feed in productive areas and travel through poor ones. When they die in or over any part of the ocean, their bodies carry the energy of the surface world down to the dark floor below. They are, in a sense, biological ferries, transporting the nutrition of rich surface ecosystems to the deep sea floor below impoverished ones. The deep ocean is not a uniform place. It has mountains and valleys and plains and canyons. The abyssal plain, the flat expanse at the deepest part of many ocean basins, is the most food-limited of all. Marine snow arrives there, but slowly and sparsely. The communities that live there are adapted to extreme food limitation. They grow slowly. They reproduce infrequently. They are patient in ways that surface organisms are not. When a whale dies at sea, its body initially floats. The gases produced by early decomposition inflate the carcass. For days or sometimes weeks, the whale drifts at or near the surface. During this time, seabirds and sharks and other large scavengers feed on it. This surface scavenging stage is vigorous. White sharks have been observed tearing chunks from floating whale carcasses. Tiger sharks, Greenland sharks in cold waters. Seabirds by the thousands descend on some carcasses. The surface feast can last for days or weeks. Then the gases of decomposition dissipate or escape. The carcass loses its buoyancy, and it begins to sink. The descent of a large whale carcass through the water column is called the sinking phase, and it is remarkably fast. A whale carcass can sink at rates of several hundred meters per day. A large whale might travel from the surface to a depth of 2,000 or 3,000 meters in just days or a week. As it sinks, it is not unnoticed. Sleeper sharks are known to follow whale falls downward. The six-gill shark, a deep ocean species, is another common visitor at depth. Scavengers intercept the carcass as it descends, feeding as it sinks. By the time the whale reaches the seafloor, it has already lost some of its mass to these mid-water scavengers, but it still arrives as an enormous resource. It strikes the soft sediment of the seafloor, sending up a plume of disturbed material. It settles. It comes to rest, and the deep ocean community responds to its presence almost immediately. Within hours, in some cases, the first creatures begin to arrive. The physics of sinking is interesting in its own right. A whale's body is not uniformly dense. Bone is denser than water. Blubber is less dense. Muscle is roughly neutral. The buoyancy of a carcass depends on the balance between these components and the gases produced by decomposition. In the earliest stages, decomposition gases dominate and the carcass floats. As gases escape, bone density wins. The carcass sinks. The rate of sinking depends on size. A larger whale, with more bone mass relative to surface area, tends to sink faster than a smaller one. Temperature also matters. Colder water suppresses decomposition, which means fewer gases, which means faster sinking in some cases. And depth affects the rate of sinking too. As the carcass descends, the increasing pressure compresses any remaining gas pockets, reducing buoyancy. The descent accelerates. At depth, the carcass may arrive at the seafloor moving at several meters per minute. It strikes the soft sediment, displaces a cloud of disturbed mud, and comes to rest. The chemical signal released by a sinking whale carcass creates a plume that can extend for kilometers in the current. This plume is not just an attractant for large scavengers. It also sees the arrival of the microbial communities that will dominate the later stages. Bacterial spores and free-living cells already present in the water column begin to colonize the carcass as soon as it arrives. The first stage of a whale fall is sometimes called the mobile scavenger stage. It is the most dramatic and most rapid. Within hours to days of the carcass landing on the seafloor, large scavengers begin to arrive. How they find it is remarkable in itself. The deep ocean is dark. Currents at the seafloor are slow and unpredictable. A whale carcass on a vast, flat abyssal plain might seem impossible to locate for creatures that cannot see it from any distance. And yet they find it. They find it by scent, or more precisely, by chemosynthesis, by detecting dissolved organic compounds in the water, amino acids and fatty acids, and other molecules released as the whale begins to decompose. These molecules drift downward and outward from the carcass in a plume, a chemical signal spreading through the water with the slow currents. Deep ocean scavengers have evolved extraordinary sensitivity to exactly these signals. Hagfish are among the first arrivals. These ancient, jawless, eel-like creatures have poor vision, but remarkable chemosensory abilities. They can detect the plume of a whale carcass from enormous distances. They arrive in enormous numbers at some whale falls, writhing over the carcass in dense masses. Six-gill sharks arrive, sleeper sharks, giant isopods, armadillo-like crustaceans, sometimes called the cockroaches of the deep, can be found at whale falls. Rat-tail fish, one of the most common deep ocean fish, arrive and compete for access. The mobile scavenger stage can involve dozens of species and can strip a large whale carcass down to bare bone in as little as 6 months to 2 years. The mass of the whale, a resource that took decades to accumulate in a living whale, is consumed with remarkable efficiency. Almost nothing is wasted. The chemosensory abilities of deep-sea scavengers are tuned to an environment where visual signals are useless. There is no light to see with. So evolution has invested heavily in chemical detection. Hagfish, for example, have a lateral line system sensitive to water movements and chemoreceptors capable of detecting amino acids at extraordinarily low concentrations. A single hagfish can detect dissolved organic compounds dispersed through an enormous volume of water. When a whale carcass arrives on the seafloor and begins to release compounds into the water, the signal spreads. Slowly but surely, the plume extends downward and outward with the gentle bottom currents, and scavengers, sometimes from kilometers away, detect the signal and begin to orient toward it. The navigation is not direct. It is more like following a gradient, moving in the direction of increasing concentration. Each movement toward higher concentration is rewarded. Each movement away is penalized. Over time, the hagfish arrives at the source. This chemical tracking across the dark seafloor is one of the least observed and most impressive behaviors in the deep ocean. The chemical signal released by a sinking whale carcass creates a plume that can extend for kilometers in the current. This plume is not just an attractant for large scavengers. It also seeds the arrival of the microbial communities that will dominate the later stages. Bacterial spores and free-living cells already present in the water column begin to colonize the carcass as soon as it arrives. After the large scavengers have stripped the bones, the whale fall enters its second stage, the enrichment opportunist stage. By this point, the bones and the sediment surrounding them are saturated with organic material. Oils from the whale's blubber have soaked into the sediment and into the bone. Nutrients from the decomposing tissues have permeated the surrounding mud. This enriched zone, perhaps several meters in radius around the skeleton, becomes colonized by dense communities of smaller organisms. Polychaetae worms are particularly prominent at this stage. Some species of polychaetes can reach extraordinary densities on whale fall sediments, hundreds or thousands of individuals per square meter. Crustaceans arrive. Amphipods, tiny shrimp-like creatures, graze on the bacterial communities forming on the bones and sediment. Gastropod mollusks, snails adapted to the deep, gather in numbers not seen in any other deep-sea environment. The enrichment opportunist stage can be extraordinarily rich in terms of the number of individuals present. But the diversity of species is not yet at its peak. That comes later. The enrichment opportunist stage is about abundance. It is about organisms capable of rapid reproduction and dense population growth taking advantage of the sudden availability of food. They do not need to be rare specialists. They just need to be present and capable of exploiting what is there. This stage can last for months to several years, depending on the size of the whale and the temperature of the water. Colder water slows decomposition and extends every stage of the process. At the coldest depths, the enrichment opportunist stage alone can persist for years, slowly, patiently. In the dark, the communities of the enrichment opportunist stage are not identical from one whale fall to another. They vary with depth, latitude, temperature, and the species of whale that fell. A whale that fell in the Pacific at 2,000 meters will attract a different community from one that fell in the Atlantic at 500 meters. The temperature of the water is particularly important. In the cold waters of the deep North Pacific, for example, the enrichment opportunist stage can be extraordinarily rich. Species that are rare or absent in warmer, shallower whale falls can be common and abundant there. The oxygen content of the water also matters. At some depths, oxygen levels in the ocean are very low, creating what are called oxygen minimum zones. In these zones, the mobile scavenger community is reduced. Some scavengers cannot tolerate low oxygen and avoid these areas. But the anaerobic bacteria that power the sulfophilic stage later are actually better suited to low oxygen conditions. A whale fall in an oxygen minimum zone may skip or shorten the early stages and transition more rapidly to the chemosynthetic stage. The polychaetae worms of the enrichment opportunist stage are among the most abundant animals in the deep ocean. Some species, like Victorniella flocati, are found almost exclusively at whale falls and cold seep sediments. Others are more broadly distributed, but reach their highest densities at whale falls. The sediment beneath the whale becomes a dense matrix of worm tubes and burrows, enriched with organic material, active with biological processing. You are lying very still now. The day has grown distant. The thoughts that pressed close earlier have begun to soften and thin at their edges. Your breathing has found its own pace. Slow, easy, unhurried. And as you rest here, I want you to imagine descending, not quickly, slowly, the way a single flake of marine snow drifts downward through the water column. Gently, without any particular hurry. The surface of the ocean is far above you now. The light faded a long time ago. Here there is only dark and cold and quiet. The seafloor stretches out in every direction in the beam of an imaginary light. Pale sediment, soft and undisturbed, stretching farther than you can see. And ahead of you, resting on that pale sediment, is something vast and still. It is the skeleton of a whale, white bones curving upward from the mud. Ribs like the arches of an ancient building. The great dome of the skull, all of it settled now, come to rest after a long journey from somewhere near the surface far above. And it is not empty. It is alive. Dense mats of white and orange bacteria cover the bones. Worms thread between them. Small crustaceans move across the surface of the sediment nearby. The water just above the bones shimmers slightly with dissolved compounds, a chemical cloud, invisible but rich, extending outward from the skeleton into the surrounding dark. This is a whale fall, not a place of ending, a place of beginning. In the quiet deep, one whale is feeding thousands of lives, and has been doing so for years, and will continue for decades more. The quality of the dark at the seafloor is difficult to describe in ordinary terms. There is a difference between a dark room and the dark of the deep ocean. In a dark room, your eyes eventually adjust. The faint light under a door, the glow of a standby indicator. There is almost always some photon reaching your retina. At 2,000 meters in the ocean, there are none. Not one. The darkness is so complete that many deep-sea animals have lost their eyes entirely. There was no selective pressure to maintain them. Seeing provides no advantage, and the energy cost of building and maintaining eyes can be redirected elsewhere. Some deep-sea animals have enormously enlarged eyes, trying to catch the faintest traces of bioluminescence. Others have abandoned sight completely. In this darkness, the whale fall is a place of intense chemical activity, but no light whatsoever. The worms and bacteria and crustaceans living on the bones navigate entirely by chemoreception and mechanoreception, by sensing dissolved chemicals and water movements. They live full ecological lives in conditions that a human brain would find simply impossible. There is no sound at the whale fall, not from the whale itself, not from most of the animals living there. Some deep-sea creatures produce sounds for communication, but most of the whale fall community is silent. The bacteria are silent. The Osedax worms are silent. The slow chemical reactions in the bone proceed without any noise. It is a deeply quiet place. Perfectly dark, perfectly cold, and perfectly, extraordinarily alive. The third and most scientifically remarkable stage of a whale fall is called the sulfophilic stage. It is the stage that has drawn the most attention from researchers, and it is the stage that can last the longest. As whale bones are consumed, the oils stored within them begin to seep outward. Whale bones are not like the bones of terrestrial animals. They are rich in lipids, in fats and oils, stored during the whale's lifetime as an energy reserve. A single whale skeleton can contain several tons of these oils. As bacteria begin to break down the oils in the bone, something extraordinary happens. Sulfate-reducing bacteria colonize the bone interior and the surrounding sediment. These bacteria consume the lipids and produce hydrogen sulfide as a byproduct. Hydrogen sulfide is a toxic gas at the surface, the smell of rotten eggs. But in the deep ocean, it becomes fuel. Chemosynthetic bacteria, the same type found at hydrothermal vents, colonize the whale bones and use the hydrogen sulfide as an energy source. They are the base of a new food web, a food web that does not depend on sunlight. that is powered entirely by the chemical energy stored in the whale's bones. The white bacterial mats visible on whale bones during the sulfophilic stage are these chemosynthetic communities. They are dense, productive, and ecologically complex. They support grazers, predators, and scavengers, just as a coral reef supports its own complex community. And they can persist for decades, as long as there are lipids in the bones, and as long as sulfate-reducing bacteria continue to process them. The chemosynthetic community thrives. In some cases, this stage has been estimated to last 50 years or more. The hydrogen sulfide produced by sulfate-reducing bacteria is not just fuel for chemosynthetic organisms. It is also, at sufficient concentrations, toxic to aerobic life. This creates an interesting zonation around the sulfophilic whale fall, close to the bones, where hydrogen sulfide concentrations are highest. Only organisms specifically adapted to sulfidic conditions can survive. These are the chemosynthetic bacteria, the Osedax worms, and a few other specialists. Farther away from the bones, where the hydrogen sulfide is diluted by the overlying water, a different community can exist. Organisms that prefer oxygenated conditions, but can tolerate modest sulfide levels. And farther still, at the margins of the whale fall's chemical influence, the surrounding abyssal community continues. These three zones, the sulfide-rich core, the transitional zone, and the surrounding ambient seafloor, create a gradient of chemistry and ecology that is remarkably similar to the zonation seen around hydrothermal vents. The pattern is the same. Only the source of the sulfide is different. At vents, it rises from below, from volcanic activity. At a whale fall, it rises from the bones themselves. The similarity between whale fall communities and hydrothermal vent communities extends beyond the chemistry. It extends to the evolutionary relationships of the species present. Phylogenetic studies have shown that some whale fall species are the closest known relatives of vent species. They share common ancestors. This is consistent with the stepping stone hypothesis. The whale fall and the vent are not just ecologically similar. They are biologically connected through evolutionary history. The sulfophilic stage of a whale fall has revealed something profound about the deep ocean. Whale falls may act as stepping stones for chemosynthetic organisms. Hydrothermal vents, the other major source of chemosynthetic food energy in the deep ocean, are found along mid-ocean ridges. They are widely separated, many hundreds of kilometers apart. Cold seeps, another source of chemical energy, are similarly isolated. How do the specialized organisms of these communities spread from one vent or seep to another across such vast distances? How do their larvae travel hundreds of kilometers of cold, dark, food-poor ocean to reach a new vent? Whale falls may be part of the answer. A whale fall can produce a localized chemosynthetic community that persists for decades. If whale falls occur frequently enough across the deep ocean, they may form a network of temporary islands, way stations where chemosynthetic organisms can survive, reproduce, and disperse. Not a permanent home, but a place to stop and reproduce before the next generation continues the journey. This hypothesis is supported by the discovery that several species found at whale falls are also found at hydrothermal vents and cold seeps. Species that appear to be specialists of these sulfide-rich environments turn up at whale falls, suggesting that whale falls are indeed integrated into the larger network of chemosynthetic habitats. The deep ocean, which might appear to be a featureless and isolated place, may actually be more connected than it seems. Connected by the slow rain of whale bodies from above, each one creating a temporary island of chemical energy that links the more permanent habitats spread across the basin floor. The concept of connectivity in the deep ocean is one of the most active areas of research in marine biology. For a long time, the isolated habitats of the deep, vents, seeps, whale falls were studied independently. Each was remarkable in its own right, but the question of how they are connected, how species move between them, has become increasingly important. Genetic studies have revealed that populations of the same species, living at vents thousands of kilometers apart, are genetically similar. Too similar to have evolved independently. This means they must exchange individuals. Larvae must travel between distant vent systems. How those larvae navigate the dark, cold, food-poor expanses between habitats is not fully understood, but the whale fall stepping stone hypothesis provides one possible mechanism. If whale falls are common enough and distributed widely enough across the ocean floor, they could form a network of temporary habitats, each one lasting decades, each one potentially producing larvae that drift to the next stepping stone. The distances between whale falls in the North Pacific, for example, have been estimated at roughly 5 to 16 kilometers. Within the dispersal range of larvae of some chemosynthetic species, recent genetic studies have provided some of the strongest evidence for connectivity between chemosynthetic habitats. Populations of Bathymodialis mussels, found at both vents and whale falls, show patterns of genetic relatedness consistent with regular dispersal between sites. The larvae of these mussels are long-lived. They can drift in deep ocean currents for weeks or months before settling. This gives them the range needed to travel between whale falls, and between whale falls and the more permanent vent and seep habitats. Let us think about the species that have been found at whale falls. The list is long and surprising. More than 400 species have been recorded at whale fall sites around the world. Many of them are found nowhere else, or only at whale falls and at hydrothermal vents or cold seeps. Osedax worms are perhaps the most famous whale fall specialists. Their name means bone eater in Latin. These small worms, first described in 2004, have no mouth and no digestive system. They attach to whale bones and extend root-like structures into the bone interior. These roots host symbiotic bacteria that break down the fats and proteins in the bone and provide nutrients to the worm. The worm essentially farms bacteria inside the bone, absorbing the products of bacterial metabolism through its root-like tissue. Female Osedax worms can be quite small, a few centimeters long. The males are smaller still, microscopic, living inside the body of the female, sometimes dozens of them in a single female. This extreme sexual dimorphism is related to the unpredictable nature of whale fall habitats. When a female Osedax worm finds a whale bone, the best strategy for males is to find a female as quickly as possible, settle on her, and begin reproducing. Males that waste time looking for a bone of their own may never reproduce at all. Osedax worms have now been found at whale fall sites across the world, from shallow coastal waters to the deepest abyssal plains. Different species occupy different depths and different parts of the skeleton. They are extraordinary animals, evolved specifically for a habitat that most of the ocean never encounters. Osedax worms were first discovered in 2004 from whale bones found at about 3,000 meters depth in the Monterey Bay submarine canyon. The discovery was made by a team from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute using the remotely operated vehicle Tiburon. The team observed what appeared to be feathery red plumes emerging from the surface of whale bones. Closer examination revealed that the plumes were the gills of worms and that the worms were embedded in the bone. The worms were unlike any previously described species. Their anatomy was extraordinary. No mouth, no gut, no digestive system, just a plume of gills for gas exchange, a body wall for nutrient absorption, and the root-like structures drilling into the bone. The bacteria inside the roots were the actual digestive system. The worm had outsourced its digestion entirely. Since 2004, more than 20 species of Osedax have been described. They range from the North Pacific to the North Atlantic, from the South Pacific to the Southern Ocean. Wherever whale bones have been examined carefully at depth, Osedax has been found, and wherever they have been found, they have been diverse. Different species on different parts of the same skeleton. Whale falls were not scientifically described until 1987. Before that, while marine biologists were aware that whale carcasses must reach the seafloor, no one had systematically studied what happened there. The first detailed scientific descriptions came from researchers working with deep-sea submersibles off the coast of California. They discovered a whale fall by accident while using a submersible for other purposes. What they found was so striking and so clearly distinct from any other deep-sea habitat that it launched a new field of research. Since then, scientists have sought out whale falls deliberately. They have deployed whale carcasses experimentally, sinking dead stranded whales into deep water and monitoring them over years. They have used remotely operated vehicles to survey known whale fall sites again and again over time. This long-term monitoring has revealed the stages of succession in unprecedented detail. How one community gives way to another, how the chemical environment of the site changes over years and decades, how the surrounding sediment becomes enriched and then slowly returns to normal. One of the most productive whale fall research programs has used whale carcasses sunk in Monterey Bay, California, at depths of around 1,000 meters. These experimentally placed carcasses have been monitored for decades, providing a uniquely detailed record of whale fall ecology. The data from these sites have informed almost everything we know about how whale fall communities develop and change over time. And the research continues. Scientists visit these sites regularly, like caretakers of a long-running ecological experiment, watching the bones slowly disappear and the community slowly shift. The experimental whale falls at Monterey Bay have taught researchers something unexpected about the pace of change at whale fall sites. The rate at which the community develops and the diversity it achieves varies substantially with the size of the whale. Larger whales sustain larger and more diverse communities for longer. This makes intuitive sense. More bone, more lipid, more chemical energy, more years of sulfophilic activity. But the relationship is not simple. A whale twice the size does not produce a community twice as diverse or last twice as long. The relationship is more complex, with larger whales producing disproportionately richer communities. This suggests that there are threshold effects in whale fall ecology. Below a certain size, a whale fall may not sustain the conditions needed for a full sulfophilic community to develop. Above a certain size, it may sustain conditions rich enough to attract highly specialized species that do not appear at smaller falls. The great blue whale, the largest animal that has ever lived, would presumably produce a whale fall of extraordinary richness and extraordinary duration. A single blue whale fall might sustain a sulfophilic community for a century. The Monterey Bay whale fall studies have also revealed the importance of the surrounding sediment community. The influence of a whale fall does not stop at the edge of the visible bones. The enriched sediment extends meters in every direction. Species diversity and abundance in the sediment around a whale fall can be elevated for several meters beyond the visible carcass. The whale fall therefore enriches a larger area of seafloor than the bones alone would suggest. The whale fall is a reminder that death in the ocean is never simple or final. It is a redistribution. The whale spent its life filtering and concentrating resources. It ate enormous quantities of krill or squid or small fish. It built those resources into muscle and bone and fat. It grew for decades, accumulating mass and chemical energy over a lifetime that might have lasted 60 or 70 years. And then, in dying, it surrendered all of that accumulated energy back to the ocean. Not at once. Slowly, over years, over decades, first to the large scavengers, then to the smaller opportunists, then to the chemosynthetic community feeding on the oils in the bone, then finally to the slow mineralization of the bone itself as the last organic compounds are broken down. The whale's life and the whale fall together form one long cycle of accumulation and release. The whale is a slow-moving storage unit. It absorbs energy at the surface over a lifetime. Then it releases it at the seafloor over decades. This cycle is not incidental to the ecology of the deep ocean. It is one of its structural features. Before whales evolved, roughly 35 million years ago, this particular form of large-body energy transfer to the deep seafloor did not exist. The deep ocean was still fed by marine snow and by the falls of smaller organisms. But whale falls add something different, a concentrated, long-duration pulse of energy at a single point, an ecological event that can support a community more diverse than anything else in the surrounding deep for 50 years. The evolutionary history of whale falls is tied to the evolutionary history of whales themselves. The first fully aquatic cetaceans, ancestors of modern whales, appeared in the oceans roughly 50 million years ago. But they were small. Over tens of millions of years, whales became larger. The evolution of filter feeding, particularly baleen feeding, which allows some whales to consume enormous quantities of small prey with great efficiency, drove some lineages toward gigantism. By around 15 million years ago, large baleen whales similar in size to modern blue whales existed, and when they died, their bones fell to the seafloor and created whale falls similar to those we study today. The Osedax worms that exploit whale bones today likely evolved alongside the whales, co-evolving over tens of millions of years. Each new species of large whale that arose in the ocean created a new opportunity for whale fall specialists, and the specialists evolved to take advantage of it. The ecology of the whale fall is therefore a product of the entire evolutionary history of the whale. Each whale carries in its bones the ecological legacy of every whale that died before it. Before the modern great whales evolved, the deep ocean's stepping stone network may have been different in character. The large marine reptiles of the Mesozoic, the ichthyosaurs and plesiosaurs and mosasaurs, were not as large or as lipid-rich as modern great whales. Their bones would have supported shorter, less productive whale fall-like communities. The evolution of the great whales transformed the nature of this network, making it more persistent, more productive, more capable of sustaining the specialized communities we see today. There is something quietly moving about the scale of time in a whale fall. Consider what 50 years means. A child born today will be in middle age before the last of the whale's bones are fully consumed. The whale itself may have been alive for 60 or 70 years before it died, so the total span of its influence on the ocean, from birth to the final mineralization of its bones, might be 130 years. 5 human generations. Consider the small animals living on those bones during the sulfophilic stage. Generations of Osedax worms are born and die on the same skeleton. Their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren live on the same bones. The bones are the world. The bones are everything. The worm has no knowledge of the whale that produced the bones, or of the surface ocean far above, or of the sunlit world where the whale once swam. It knows only the bone, only the dark, only the community of creatures around it. And in that small, specific, improbable world, it lives a complete life. Every generation of Osedax, every hagfish that found the carcass in its early days, every polychaete worm that grazed the enriched sediment, every bacterium that colonized the lipid-rich bone, they are all part of the same story. A story that began when a whale died somewhere in the open ocean and sank slowly toward the dark. And that story is still unfolding. Right now. In the cold, quiet deep, in the bones of whales that died years or decades ago. In communities that no human eye has ever seen. The question of how long whalebone can persist on the seafloor is not fully answered. In the sulfophilic stage, bone is actively being consumed. The Osedax worms bore into it. The bacteria break down the lipids within it. The bone shrinks. But the rate of consumption depends on the temperature of the water, the activity of the bacterial community, the density of the Osedax population, and the size and composition of the bone. At colder temperatures, everything is slower. In very cold, deep water, whalebone might persist for a century or more. In warmer, shallower water, the same bone might be reduced to fragments in a decade or two. Some very old whalebone fragments have been found in ancient sediment cores. Fossilized whalebones from millions of years ago sometimes show traces of boring, suggesting that ancient Osedax-like organisms were present. The fossil record of whale falls is poor, because soft-bodied organisms are not easily fossilized. But the chemical signatures of ancient whale falls may be preserved in the sediment record as anomalies in carbon and sulfur isotopes. Some researchers are beginning to look for these signatures in ancient sediment cores to find the ghosts of whale falls that occurred millions of years ago. The patience required to study whale falls is a kind of ecological patience itself. Researchers who began studying experimental whale falls in Monterey Bay in the late 1980s are still visiting those same sites. The bones are still there, still hosting community, still chemically active. The scientists who started this work have watched the same skeleton change over decades. Some have retired. Others have passed the work to younger colleagues. The whale fall outlasts careers. The diversity of life at a whale fall continues to surprise researchers. Each new whale fall studied seems to add new species to the list. Species found nowhere else. Species that appear to have evolved specifically for this unusual habitat. This high degree of endemism, of species found only in one kind of place, is one of the striking features of whale fall biology. It implies that whale falls are not simply visited by opportunistic generalists. They are colonized by specialists, by organisms whose ancestors colonized whale falls long enough ago that natural selection had time to produce dedicated adaptations. The Osedax worm is the clearest example. No mouth, no digestive system, roots that penetrate bone, bacterial farms inside its tissues. These are not general-purpose adaptations. They are specifically, precisely tuned to the task of extracting nutrition from bone. Natural selection does not produce that kind of specificity quickly or accidentally. It implies a long evolutionary relationship between Osedax and whale falls. How long is uncertain. Whale-sized cetaceans have existed for roughly 35 million years. Osedax may have been exploiting their bones for much of that time. Before whales, other large marine reptiles died and sank. Ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, plesiosaurs, mosasaurs. These marine reptiles also had bone-rich skeletons. Some researchers have speculated that ancestors of Osedax may have colonized the bones of marine reptiles long before whales existed. The ecology of the whale fall may therefore be far older than the whales themselves. Older by tens of millions of years, a community that adapted to exploit giant marine carcasses long before the modern whales that now sustain it came to exist. The whale fall has become, in recent years, a model system for thinking about extinction and ecological loss. Commercial whaling in the 19th and 20th centuries removed vast numbers of large whales from the ocean. The effect on whale fall ecology was not considered at the time. It was not even a category of thought. But the implications are sobering. Fewer large whales dying means fewer whale falls. Fewer whale falls. Fewer whale falls means fewer stepping stones for chemosynthetic communities, potentially smaller and more isolated populations of whale fall specialists. reduced gene flow between vent and seep populations, and reduced carbon delivery to the deep seafloor. The recovery of whale populations since the moratorium on commercial whaling began in the 1980s has been real but uneven. Some species have recovered substantially. Others remain at a small fraction of their pre-whaling abundance. The deep ocean ecology of whale falls is recovering too, but slowly. The timescales of whale fall ecology are long. A single whale fall persists for 50 years. The ecological network that connects whale falls to vents and seeps operates over centuries. The full recovery of that network will take much longer than any individual whale's lifetime. The recovery of whale populations is not uniform. Blue whales remain at perhaps 5 to 10% of their pre-whaling numbers in most ocean basins. Sperm whales have recovered more. Humpback whales in some populations have recovered substantially. Each species that recovers adds more whale falls to the deep ocean, more stepping stones, more carbon export, more food for the deep. The recovery of whales is therefore not just a conservation success. It is an ecological restoration of the deep seafloor. There is a less obvious but important connection between whale falls and the global carbon cycle. Whales are large-bodied air-breathing animals. They feed at or near the surface. They absorb carbon into their bodies as they grow. When a whale dies and sinks, that carbon is transported from the surface ocean, where carbon is in active exchange with the atmosphere, to the deep seafloor, where it is effectively sequestered for a very long time. This process is called the whale pump, and it is one of the ways in which the ocean removes carbon from the surface and stores it in the deep. Researchers have estimated the carbon sequestration value of the whale pump. It is not negligible. Before commercial whaling dramatically reduced whale populations in the 19th and 20th centuries, the global whale population was enormous. Blue whales, humpback whales, sperm whales, right whales, all in numbers far larger than their current populations. The combined effect of these animals feeding, growing, defecating, and dying was a significant contribution to the carbon balance of the surface ocean. Commercial whaling removed an estimated 70 to 90% of some whale populations. This represented not just a biological loss, but a reduction in the ocean's capacity to cycle and sequester carbon. Whale recovery, which is slowly occurring as protections have come into effect, may therefore have benefits not just for the ecosystems of the deep ocean, but for the broader climate system. More whales means more whale falls. More whale falls means more carbon delivered to the deep. More carbon in the deep means less carbon in the atmosphere. The whale pump has been quantified in some detail by researchers studying whale ecology and carbon cycling. A blue whale can store roughly 9 tons of carbon in its body over a lifetime. When it dies and sinks, the carbon is delivered to the deep ocean. At depth, it can remain locked in bone for decades or longer. Compared to a whale that dies at the surface and is consumed there, the carbon export to the deep is substantial. Before commercial whaling, researchers have estimated that the global population of large whales may have sequestered and transported to the deep ocean something on the order of 160,000 tons of carbon per year through their deaths alone. Additionally, whale feces, which are released near the surface and are rich in iron and nitrogen, fertilize the surface ocean. This stimulates phytoplankton growth. Phytoplankton photosynthesis absorbs carbon dioxide, and when the phytoplankton die, they too sink, carrying more carbon to the deep. The whale is therefore a carbon pump in 2 directions simultaneously. Its feces fertilize the surface, driving carbon absorption. Its body, when it dies, delivers carbon to the deep. The iron fertilization aspect of the whale pump is also significant. Whale feces are particularly rich in iron. Iron is a limiting nutrient for phytoplankton in many parts of the ocean, particularly in the Southern Ocean and the subantarctic. When whales feed in iron-poor waters and then defecate near the surface, they effectively fertilize the surface ocean with iron that would otherwise remain locked in the bodies of their prey at depth. This iron fertilization stimulates phytoplankton blooms. The phytoplankton absorb carbon dioxide during photosynthesis. When they die, they sink, carrying that carbon to the deep. The whale is therefore not just a passive carbon store. It is an active participant in the surface ocean carbon cycle. Its feeding behavior, its digestion, its defecation, all contribute to the productivity of the surface and the carbon export to the deep. The whale pump is therefore larger than just the carbon in whale bodies. It encompasses the entire cascade of ecological effects that a living whale produces. As we come gently toward the end of our time at the whale fall tonight, let us sit for a moment with what the whale fall represents. It is a place of extraordinary generosity. Not the generosity of intention. The whale did not choose to die where it did. It did not plan to become a habitat. But the consequence of its death is generosity on a scale difficult to comprehend. Hundreds of species sustained. 50 years of community. A stepping stone for organisms traveling between the isolated oases of the deep. A pulse of carbon delivered to the dark and stored there. A living record of the deep ocean's capacity to find abundance and loss. The whale fall is also a reminder that time in the deep ocean moves differently than it does at the surface. Things happen slowly there. Very slowly. A community that would form and dissolve in weeks at the surface takes decades to develop and decades to fade at depth. The cold, the pressure, the darkness, all of these slow everything down. And in that slowing, there is a kind of patience that is difficult to find anywhere else on Earth. The whale fall does not hurry. It does not need to. It has all the time it needs. The bones are not going anywhere. The bacteria are not in a rush. The Osedax worms live and die on their portion of bone in the same unhurried dark that has surrounded them since they arrived. There is something deeply restful in this, in the idea of a community that does not rush, that takes 50 years to do what it does, and does it quietly, in the dark, without any witness but the occasional light of a research submersible. There is a species of snail found at Whale Falls that is worth knowing about. Rubispira, meaning ruby spiral, was described in 2010. It was found living on whale bones in the deep Pacific. What makes it remarkable, beyond the beauty implied by its name, is that it appears to be a predator. Most animals at Whale Falls are either scavengers, feeding directly on the whale tissue, or deposit feeders, grazing on bacteria and organic material in the sediment. Rubispire appears to prey on the Osedax worms themselves. A predator of a specialist that is itself a specialist. A second trophic level in the whale fall community built entirely on organisms found nowhere else. This kind of ecological complexity, a predator of a specialist, is what distinguishes a mature whale fall community from a simple collection of scavengers. It means that the whale fall is not just a source of food. It is a complete community, with its own food webs, its own ecological interactions, its own guilds and niches, a miniature ecosystem assembled from the bones of one animal, in the dark, over 50 years. As we rise slowly now, up through the cold and dark, back through the water column toward the world you left behind when you closed your eyes, let everything we have visited tonight settle softly into the quiet at the back of your mind. We began with the death of a whale. And we discovered that death in the ocean is not an ending. It is a transformation. The whale sinks from the sunlit surface world to the dark seafloor below. Large scavengers arrive within hours and strip the soft tissue. Smaller opportunists colonize the enriched sediment. Then the sulfophilic community establishes itself on the lipid-rich bones. The chemosynthetic bacteria, the Osedax worms boring into the bone with their root-like tissue, the dense mats of bacteria glowing orange and white in the dark, the whole complex community, 400 species or more, sustained by the energy stored in a single whale over a lifetime. For 50 years, in complete darkness, we learned that whale falls may be stepping stones, linking the isolated chemosynthetic habitats of the deep ocean into a connected network. We learned that Osedax worms are specialists so precisely adapted to whale bone that they have no mouth and no digestive system of their own. We thought about the whale pump, the carbon carried down from the surface by the bodies of whales, stored in the deep for millennia, and we sat with the extraordinary patience of it all. 50 years of community, 50 years of life in the dark, built on the bones of one animal. Through all of it, one idea stayed close. Nothing in the ocean is wasted. Everything becomes something else. Death becomes life. Bone becomes food. Stillness becomes abundance. And the dark, which might seem like the end of everything, turns out to be where some of the most complex and patient and improbable communities on Earth have made their home. There is nothing more you need to hold tonight. Let the whale fall continue in the dark. Let the worms do their quiet work. Let the worms do their quiet work. Let the bacteria bloom on the bone. Let the community proceed as it has been proceeding for years, without your attention, without your awareness, in the cold and still and patient deep. And let yourself sink into the slow, unhurried passage of your own rest. The deep ocean is patient tonight. The bones are still rich. The community is still thriving. And in this quiet room, press gently into your bed. You are exactly where you are meant to be. Resting. Still. Safe. If you are still with us, another quiet journey is waiting for you. And if this one helped carry you towards sleep, a like, a subscribe, or a gentle comment helps other tired minds find their way here too. From fall asleep, and from one tired mind to another, across the soft, patient dark of tonight. Sleep well. Rest gently. And good night.